Good afternoon, Johnny.
Good afternoon, Todd.
What's flowing today?
Surrender.
I had adaptability.
Oh, nice.
Hmm.
Yeah. How do you feel about adaptability?
Well, it was interesting. It comes up a lot, I guess, since maybe for a number of months. A teacher told us that discernment, adaptability, discernment and adaptability were two qualities to really focus upon for the next coming months. And so when I thought of adaptability, I thought, there was a little bit of the rational mind kicking in and saying, oh, Todd, you've been exploring this one a lot. It comes up a lot for you. Is this really from your eldership, or is this from your ego? It's something you might find easy to talk about.
Oh.
That's what came up for me a little bit. And was there, again, these little weak moments of that rational mind, the ego, and coming in there. Is it, will there be enough breadth to adaptability to, fill our 45 minutes or so?
Yeah.
Which I know we could probably talk for 3 hours on it. And we build in the surrender aspect. So then what came through was, that I know that what we've both been given in our meditation prior to the beginning, will create a beautiful form for this offering today, or this discussion around humans being.
Yeah.
And so in terms of adaptability, what it means to me, in what ways I work with it, is tying in with the Buddhist theme of impermanence.
Mm-hmm.
That everything is constantly changing. And even this incarnation that we've chosen, this 80, 90, 100-year lifespan, is just one little blip on the radar of us as our eternal beingness. So for me, that openness to adaptability allows me to really be in joy, and allows in that when we're joying, we are being. Allows me to be much easier than when I'm holding firmly, rigidly to some fixed plan or fixed way that something must be. That allowance of shifting, of adaptability within that creates that space, creates that openness, to flow from turmoil to peace.
Mm-hmm.
And many other shifts. So, and what, with the aspect of surrender, adding that in there as well, surrendering to the adaptability, and also adaptability being surrender to what is, and being without endeavoring to force something from the ego to bend things to my own will.
Yeah. When I think of adaptability, I think of being flexible. And as well, when I think of surrender, I think of being flexible. And for me, surrendering, the idea that I'm already carrying and experiencing, rather than trying to control, trying to be something about, trying to have things my way. And that's what's, for me, what I understand about being adaptable. is that this is a new day. And prior to the day happening, I actually have no idea what the day is going to bring. I can plan all I want. However, this day is new. This meeting is new. The way that I move forward in my life with my ideas is a new way. And when I surrender to this moment and experience it, oftentimes I find myself listening. I find myself hearing and feeling. And this gives me an opportunity to move freely in the moment. And so earlier today, I was using a spin trimmer and trimming the orchard. And at the beginning of the task, I had what I would consider the same conversation going in my mind about the ignorance of how the orchard was set up and all this judgment that I've been carrying about it. And then I asked myself, where am I? And in that moment, I recognized that I wasn't actually present with what was happening. I was off in La La Land somewhere having this big conversation about something that doesn't even matter, and no one in my surroundings is going to hear. It's just going on. And I realized that I wasn't with what was happening. And when I became present, when I recognized my own presence, the act became very free and fluid and much more relaxing. When I recognized the experience, rather than was thinking about all these ideas that I carried about it, then it became new in the way that I felt, in what I heard and what I smelled. I actually surrendered to that moment rather than dwell on an idea I had about it. Then I just experienced it for what it was. And it became very fresh. And I think that's what adaptability holds for me, is that being adaptable is being free of preconceived ideas, is being in the moment. Any task that I find myself involved in can appear to be something the same as it always was or always is. It's the same thing. I'm going to the store and I'm getting gas and I'm putting it in the car, and like that can all seem like the same thing. I gotta get gas, or I gotta do the laundry. All these things can seem just like the same repetitive task, even though it's not. Even though in every moment we are actually new and have an opportunity to bring a newness to that moment and deeply experience it. I was having a conversation with one of my coworkers, and we were talking about the people that we work for and how we feel about them and what we're experiencing with them. And it became quite clear to me that I was only seeing in them an idea that I was holding for myself. An idea about reality, that reality exists a certain way, and then I was looking outside and seeing it on them. And it became, the phrase for me was, what is it about myself that I'm looking at that I'm saying is out there somewhere? And that's actually being about that idea rather than about the experience. And any experience I have with you is in that moment. However, I may create an identity based on my own belief about you. And then the next time I see you, I will say, well, that's who Todd. This is who Todd is, and this is how Todd's showing up, and that's actually not, that's without validity into how you're showing up, because you're showing up new today.
Mm-hmm.
You've had all sorts of stuff happen in your life in the last time that I saw you, and it could totally and completely change your outlook. It can totally completely change the way you are processing emotions and behaviors. You are a whole new man.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if I'm rigid and holding on to these ideas rather than experiencing and receiving you the way you are now, then I'm like holding this against you, even if it's something good.
Mm-hmm.
I could think, well, Todd's the best person on earth, and then when I show up, then something happens outside of that expectation, and I would say, oh my God, he's not the best person, and that's where I sit with these ideas of adaptability and surrender. Is what do I really carry in my life that is so important that I'm judging the rest of life by it,
Mm-hmm.
rather than receiving this moment?
And just to explore that a little bit, I know that what I've discovered in myself is that these characteristics of a personality in another that I might recognize that my ego might take issue with, when I really explore them, those are things about myself that I really am without feeling good about, that I'm really feeling that are a real beneficial, quality for myself. I can remember with someone who was my employer and also a friend, that he really, I really saw in him, this was a number of years ago, and endeavoring to bully someone else who was working for him. This person was looking for a bit of a shift in employment and held a position in this business that the owner relied on him quite heavily. So when this person suggested that he was going to be looking for something else, the owner told him, I'm going to go out of my way. This was with a company that had done business. It was not a competitive company, but an affiliate business that this person was looking and going to transfer into. And the owner basically threatened him and said that he would cancel the sizable account that this business had with this affiliate, with this vendor, to in hopes put the kibosh on this person going to work for them. And I saw this, and I got really irritated by it, really worked up, that warrior in me, really wanting to fight against this person bullying another person, endeavoring to control what this person was doing within their life as they were seeking just to be and be in joy, really is what it comes down to. What I recognized within myself is that the reason I could spot that bullying quality, within this friend and business owner, was because I also had it within me. It was something that I really didn't like about myself.
Yeah.
It brought me back to times as a young child being bullied, and how inadequate and insecure it made me feel, how anxious, and disconnected. A really heavy feeling of separation, and knowing what it was like to feel that way, and then also seeing how I'd inflicted that upon others.
Yeah.
I remember in a position I had in industrial sales that, there was another sales guy that I just really didn't like the way he operated. And I went out of my way to make sure that the owner knew it, because I had the owner's ear. And, this guy was ended up terminated, not just because of that. There were other things that led into it, but, I was endeavoring to make that happen as well. And to me, I consider that bullying to an extent. it's something that I don't feel is it holds a beneficial space within my heart, within my beingness. So anyhow, seeing those qualities in another is really mirroring back something that is already within me. Like you were saying earlier, about the owners that that you're that you can work for. That what's coming up, that frustration or what you might see in them that isn't something that you feel is the most beneficial. It was really bringing up something for you.
Yeah.
You worded it a little differently. And I think it is. What I'm getting to is, no matter where we want to point that finger in the direction outside of ourselves, really turn it back around. And what does it mean about me?
Yeah.
What does it mean about self?
Yeah. Where's that personal identity?
Mm-hmm.
In that moment where we see something going on outside of us, and I say, oh, I gotta go fix that. So what does it mean for me? There's something out there that I think is going wrong, that I have to do something about it. What is it internally that says, oh, I must fix the world? The world is going to show up as wrong for me, and I'll have all the opportunity I can to go out and try to fix it. Whereas if I look inwardly and I come into a state of peace with my own being, then I may simply just see these quote unquote injustices occurring around me and hold compassion for those people who are extending themselves in that way. Whenever someone turns to bullying, I immediately feel their fear.
Mm-hmm.
And when I address that fear in me, I go, oh, they've got to be afraid of all these things in order to be acting that way. Well, God only knows what's really going on inside of them. And so for me, it's those fears. It's like, what are the fears I have inside of me that I have felt it necessary to protect myself in a bullying way? Mm-hmm. And so then there's that bully image shows up, and I say, oh, I've got to protect my fears and stop them from doing this. Mm-hmm. And rectify this situation. Whereas when those other people play it out, it may be the perfect interaction for them to realize some greatness about themselves. However, if I interfere, it can become a whole new scenario of quandaries for all parties involved. Therefore myself, I look at it and I go, well, maybe a hands-off approach is the best thing. And to address my own personal issues. What is it that I'm so afraid of that I feel I have to go fix it around me? What is it that I believe in myself that I'm looking at within myself that I'm pointing out there and saying, there it is, there it is, there it is. And so I really like turning to compassion, turning to that soft place of loving self without reasons to do so. Simply just loving. When I think of the Creator, when I think of God, looking at its creation, that I have had this feeling in my life that I've worked so hard to fix my life, to master my mind, to master this self. And now I want to go out and show God how good I am. And so that ultimately my Heavenly Father is proud of me. Mm-hmm. So that my dad is proud of me, so that my mom is proud of me, so that my grandparents are proud of me. And when I think of the cause of life as being a consciousness, a conscious being, that it can only be proud of its creation exactly as it is. Mm-hmm. it's not waiting for me to do something so it can to reciprocate the creation. The creation already is. It is the consciousness that I see being of the creative force is so massive that it has already made what it wants and made what it has joy in, and it's already there, and it's reveling in that joy, and there isn't anything for it to do to give joy back. And so that's where surrender comes in for me, is that surrender into this life that is already occurring. And that gives me the strength, or gives me the avenue of adaptability. That this life is already happening. That this ultimate harmony that we've been created in is already occurring. And it's like, you know, I love rivers. I've spent a lot of time in rivers that's in my life. And I love the feel of the water having all of these forces going on in it. And that if I really want to get somewhere, I'm with it. And any time that I try to go against it, I find myself in great turmoil and turmoil. Whereas if I work with the forces that are already occurring and you know, adapt to the incoming influences, then I have freer motion.
Yeah, the railing against any one type of situation, or a type of situation, or another being, you know, railing against, noting that it's, you know, not what we desire.
Yeah.
You know, not what we wish for. Yet, you know, being able to ask, what is it within this new opportunity that is here for my own benefit? You know, for self's benefit and those that are connected with self in this moment. And that changes things very quickly from turmoil to peace and just that acceptance. You know, there was something that came up at talking with a friend a couple of days ago, and about receiving, you know, and about abundance. And, you know, again, you know, this aspect of surrendering and adaptability, and just that what this this friend of ours, she said that she'd watched this video on abundance and manifesting abundance. So one of the biggest challenges that we face is that we're not open to everything, you know. So one of the ways that we attract that abundance, that prosperity into our lives, is being open to whatever is coming towards us. You know, not trying to frame it as bad or without benefit, you know, and avoid it. You know, just allowing it to come if it feels right, you know, to allow ourselves to move with it. You know, I love the river analogy, just continuing to move downstream with it. You know, if it's one of those ones that, you know, it doesn't feel like it's a benefit for us, something that is without benefit, we just allow that to move along in the river.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we might just, you know, pull it into a little eddy and allow it to go on.
Yeah.
You know, recognizing that it's not there. And that's where it can be difficult, that adaptability, or we can frame it as difficult, is when we have to actually set a new boundary that really makes it clear for ourselves. Mm-hmm. You know, that I no longer wish to be with this type of situation that's coming up. So rather than, you know, something that I've become very good at in the past is avoiding phone calls, you know. You know, avoiding people that I feel I don't wish to talk to. You know, and what I've recognized is that, yeah, there can be benefit to take some space, but when it just becomes long-term avoidance, you know, then it's no longer benefit. You know, I'm hiding from something, and that's, you know, avoidance has been a big one for me, and continues to be. It still comes up for me, and I work with it as it does, and a lot of fear can come up. because I have, coming out of control. I haven't controlled or crafted this situation that is arising. And so that fear comes up and I wish to retreat. So what I like to employ is, if we're not fully open to that adaptability, that surrender in the moment, just stand as close to that fear as we can and acknowledge it. Don't have to go right into it in this moment if we don't feel ready to do that. But don't pack it into a neat compartment and push it into the back recesses of your mind or your consciousness, because that creates suffering in big ways. And so I'd heard this from Ram Dass one time, just stand as close to the fear as you can. And it works beautifully for me.
Yeah.
I find where the old place where I started to employ it was, when, having a difference in point of view with my beloved, and oftentimes I can be intense and I can really get behind ideas that I have, and I really, can not wish to be adaptable in that, yet I can recognize that there is benefit. And I also recognize that apologizing for my behavior prior would also be a benefit, and I've felt a lot of fear come up around that, of actually making that apology.
Mm-hmm.
And, so that was the first place I started to apply this technique that Ram Dass talks about, with just standing as close to the fear as I can, acknowledging that there is a fear there about apologizing.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to stand as close to it and acknowledge it, and ask what else is possible here when I feel ready to. And what I've found is that, within 6 to 12 to 24, 36 hours, I can then make that apology, and really move on, and just allow that to fade away, float down the river, and move into the next moment. But it's all that consternation, that we can hold about, and confusion that we can hold about an idea or something, that an old fear that we're pushing away.
Yeah.
That really just eats away at us, until we allow it to be resolved.
Yeah, and all those ideas of self-importance. Jonathan is important. If it weren't for Jonathan, this body would be dead. Jonathan makes sure that the body gets washed and the teeth get brushed and the food gets purchased and the money gets collected so that everything gets bought. And and if it weren't for Jonathan, none of that would happen. This body would die, and so self-importance comes up, and so and these fears about life, when I follow them down into my soul, I find that they reside in the fear of death. And if Jonathan dies, if the idea of Jonathan dies, who's going to take care of this body? Who's going to be caring for this life? Because I believe that this physical being needs caring for. And it's by my hand that it gets done. However, I didn't ask for the idea of Jonathan, who believes in himself as a name and an age and a collection of experiences and choices. That Jonathan didn't ask for this body. That Jonathan wasn't around when the body was made and it came into existence and it had life breathed into it. That Jonathan only came around about 3 years old into the experience. And yet it's that Jonathan who feels so self-important, and I was sharing with you something that had occurred in my life, and you asked, well, was the issue that you didn't bring up the idea? There was an idea that was brought up. I think we talked about it in our first podcast, where me and someone I know were having a back and forth, and she presents an idea, and I started arguing with her about it, and yet it was the idea that I have been holding for myself. And you're like, well, was it? Was it because you didn't come up with that idea? And so that concept came up again today, where somebody posed an idea, you know, shared something that is occurring in life, and I had to make it mine, you know, and I realized in that process of us having this conversation that I was so self-important that I went on talking about something of my own rather than revel in the joy that he was sharing about this idea that had come up. And here I am reflecting on life and being, and I realize that a lot of the position that I'm holding in life is self-importance. And what does that really mean? Is the fear of non-existence, the fear of non-validity, that I want to be valid in your eyes. And so I want to tell you all the things, how valid I am. I want to prove to you how valid I am. I want to prove to God how valid I am. I want to prove to God all the work that I've done, you know, all the you know, cleansing of the mind and cultivating of the mind and getting these strengths together. And it's this false importance, you know, that self is a collection of ideas and choices. And so today I choose surrender, and I surrender all of that importance. There isn't anything I can do to prove to that which has made me that I'm good, that I'm enough, that I've done it. What I really can do is be in a way that is celebratory of this life. And that will be doing everything that will be achieving everything that I want to achieve.
Yes.
When I simply say, oh, well, this has already been created and is already created in a way that which has created sees it in a good and strong light. And so I'm just going to celebrate that as I do it. And in celebrating that, I'm listening, I'm feeling, I'm experiencing my friends and neighbors for who they are and receiving their excitement rather than wanting to show them how important I am. You know, all these behaviors based on how important Jonathan is. You know, well, Jonathan's as important as the next guy, but no more important than anyone. And so I'm laying that one down. You know, that. And I love that when I lay them down and with intent, that the next time it comes up, I see it bubbling up. When I make a conscious choice to be rather than act, then when the act comes up, I see it coming. And I go, okay, all right, you know, thanks. And then I have an opportunity to experience the moment rather than act based on an idea.
And that's really, I mean, in a nutshell, the process of awareness and awakening, you know, is that, you know, seeing that once we shift and choose another way of being, you know, then it can become that slowly, you know, we're reminded of it. Something happens faster in some cases than others.
Yeah.
You know, and in some cases you have to fall in that hole a couple times, you know, to really see it. We have our beloved Sage looking in on us in the studio. He's a great guy in adaptability and surrender.
Right.
You know, and he also mirrors some of my own rigidity, you know, and firmness quite well as, you know, too. He's a Gemini as well.
Oh.
You know, he also has a lot of Pisces and Aquarius in his chart as well. So, you know, he's out there, not quite as grounded, and sometimes open to a lot of other energies. So a great mirror.
Nice.
Great mirror for me and his mother.
Yeah. You guys will have lots of fun with that. We all do.
Yeah.
And the more that we choose to recognize that what I'm calling life comes from what I believe in myself, then I can face me, surrender my arms, and experience life occurring every new moment. Life is occurring. Life is already happening, and I can be with it or be about it. I like to be with it. And so in that being with it, there is a depth to reality that is so far beyond my thoughts. Like there's more to hear. There's more to see. There's more that I may smell and feel. There's always more. There is a depth to reality that will boggle the mind. That is so, it's deeper than the internet. You know, just in the sensory realm alone, there is so much to experience in every moment that it is pure ecstasy. And we can be so caught up in our thoughts and our ideas about what a moment holds that we're missing the joy available. It's, this statistically being passed around the world that we use 10% of our brain. Well, I say that's because the other 90% is filtering out all of the joy that I don't want to experience.
That we're holding ourselves back from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
90% of my brain is working on holding a self-image and a self-belief system rather than, and then 10% is experiencing reality. Whereas if we release that we actually know anything about this moment that's going on, which is totally new, so therefore we can't actually know anything about it. If we release that idea alone, that every moment is new, then that opens the mind, which is doing the processing of the information. So the mind becomes open, then more of that information can flow freely into the waking consciousness, and lo and behold, we see brighter colors that are fantastic. I mean, people are even coming out in the world where they're saying, oh, this other person sees 256 more colors than everybody else. That we as human beings are amazing beings. We literally are. My dad, he worked at a lumber mill, and when they shut the lumber mill down, they were analyzing the soil for contamination. Their computer analysis was okay, but they had to call a guy in, and dogs weren't even as capable as this guy. He would smell the earth, and he would say what was in it: oil, diesel, gasoline. And he had developed his sense of smell so much that they had to go through like a very long process of chemical analysis to come at the conclusion that he came at by smelling the dirt.
I mean, when we are in power, we are far more powerful than we ever even dreamed. The experiences that we can have. It makes me think, you're talking about that, but, people that, say the earth talks to them and tells them where to drill for oil or where to drill a well.
Yeah.
They're just being that in tune, and that's possible for all of us. And in those heightened experiences, we can begin to sense what that might look like for each of us, and when we connect those heightened abilities with our unique talents and abilities that we've chosen to be born with, then I feel we're beginning to move in that direction of exploring our beingness, on what we truly are, what this authentic self is really here to do. I was talking to someone last night, and we were just saying, if we're not here exploring what it is we chose to be in this life, and really, what else are we doing here? Like anything else is just distraction.
Yeah.
We create these beautifully elaborate distractions that keep us from just surrendering into that, and being adaptable in the moment, so that we can be in line with what we truly are. And so it's amazing. I'm grateful, each time we do one of these recordings, and just, in the newness of life, particularly being here on Mother Kaua'i, and just experiencing that energy that's about healing and about embracing your true self. As we've touched on before, she shows it to you very clearly, and she allows you to move in that direction, and she'll be patient with you. But if you're not moving, if you're moving away from it, you're not moving at a pace that she's happy with, you'll get some reminders. And as those sayings go, that God, the universe, Mama Kaua'i likes to communicate in the pebble brick wall, way, first a little pebble might get tossed at you, just someone meeting on the street and a conversation about something. I think, I could move a little bit more into that way of being, maybe it's about writing books, you meet someone on the street who's, an editor, or, you've talked about your passion for writing before. And that could be a way, if you're really not exploring that, as you could be, that form of the brick, it might be that, you break your leg, or there's something, maybe not that extreme, but, something that, forces you or puts you in a place to really look at, what am I at? What's my potentiality for being a writer?
Right.
And is it that? And then if you're still not doing it, it might be, break a leg, and all you get to do is, lay around and type on a keyboard. You're not able to take yourself out into other experiences to distract yourself any longer.
Mm-hmm.
So really, looking at these types of events that come up for us as well too, if we're having difficulty doing something that's really not flowing in a certain direction, then are we really supposed to be doing that? Or is that the universe, God speaking to us saying, Jonathan, Todd, is this worth reassessing here?
Yeah.
Does this feel like peace, or does this feel like turmoil? And there's been many occasions where I've had that question asked, or I've put that question to me, and I've answered that it feels like turmoil, but then I'll say, what if I just get through this part of it, then it'll feel peaceful. Still endeavoring to force, still bringing in some awareness, but still endeavoring to force it through,
if I just get through this part,
then it'll be peaceful.
Right.
Again, choosing that distraction for what might come in another moment.
I think it's really important to stress the object of an endeavor isn't nearly as important as the endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
Like the end of the road isn't nearly as important as being on the road. Like, we journey to get somewhere. Well, getting somewhere isn't what the journey is about. And so we're so baited into, what are you going to do with your life?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with your life, Todd? Are you doing what's right for you to do? Because I know that no matter what it looks like on the outside that you're doing, that your unique expression is amazing. That is a unique expression, that nobody else lives life the way you do. Nobody else walks the way you do. Nobody else talks the way you do. Nobody else sees life the way you see life. That's absolutely completely unique within yourself.
Mhm.
If I look at life from maybe a higher perspective, which is, it's a practice perspective. Some may say it's difficult, some may say it's easy. For me, it's through communicating with others that I learn a greater perspective of life. But if I see you from outside your body, or if I see me from outside my body and I see that the way that I am already is absolutely completely unique and that's something special, I may have a greater appreciation for simply being alive.
Mm.
And another thing that I want to stress is that when I recognize being rather than doing, it is with purpose, being in a purposeful way. A lot of people think that being means laziness, without accomplishment, without endeavoring, and without being a part of our society. And so whether or not we're engaged in society or engaged in business or engaged in an employment opportunity, it's what I find to be very important is being with this life that I have, being with it and recognizing what I'm being. And when I truly recognize that, everything else flows. It's like where I find myself, in my days, I've asked to be available for a couple who are developing their land. And I have asked them quite specifically, call upon me to assist you in any way you can. Any way that you feel that you need assistance, call upon me. And so then they call upon me to do things that I don't want to do. And I realize that's me being in resistance and me holding an idea about how things are supposed to be done. You were supposed to do this, 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 and this, but you didn't, and now you're asking me to do it. And here, this is this idea that I carry, that I believe that there's a right way to life, and I believe that there's an opportunity to get 100% and extra credit on every assignment. and so, and since other people didn't, have been avoiding applying themselves in such a way, I look down upon them. I'm like, why didn't you apply yourself so you could get 100%? Mm-hmm. And the extra credit points. Now you're asking me to pick up the slack, and then I hear myself talking that way. Usually I'm talking to myself about this, mm-hmm. and I go, oh, here's this identity that I'm carrying, that I want my teachers and my family and my fellow students to believe in me, I'm smart, I'm capable, I've worked hard to apply myself, and that's important, and that gives me self-importance, and that gives me validity, and it's so important for me to be that valid that it's important for you too, Todd. And if you're not going to go that mile, boy, you better watch out. And so,
I know that place well, Jonathan. Well, that little me that loves to be right.
Yeah.
And I think, I think about time to be wrapping up. It's feeling like time to wrap it up. And I want to touch on this one thing, was just about that the distinction between self-worth and self-esteem, and that it can be the lack of self-worth, really recognizing our unique talents and abilities without having to be esteemed by someone outside of ourselves as having those gifts. Knowing that we have those within us, that allows us to surrender more fully into each moment and to be adaptable, rather than when we're coming from that place of constantly requiring that self-esteem, of requiring to be noticed for how amazing Todd is, because I've had this experience before and I've learned from it, and I've applied these different ways of coming at it that will help me in the future. And everyone should recognize what an amazing perspective this is to take.
Yeah.
Well, if I wish to take that position, that's amazing. I can feel worthy enough in myself that I'll choose to take that, and it might change down the road. There's others, who might hold that in esteem. My self-esteem may be buoyed or boosted as a result of that. Yet that's not the end game.
Yeah.
It's about reconnecting with the self-worth. To really fully acknowledge those unique talents and abilities, that individual essence you're referring to, so that we can really allow that to blossom and flourish within this lifetime, and us to know ourselves even deeper, greater, reconnect with that which we've always known before we knew ourselves.
Yeah, they're moving back into remembrance of the whole. Yes, thank you for that, Todd.
Thank you, Jonathan.
You're welcome. Well, I hope this is giving you an opportunity to giggle at yourself as you giggle at us, and as we discuss adaptability and surrender. Yes.
As humans being.
As humans being.
Blessings and agape. We love you all. Thank you.